Welcome inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 688. Whew, it's what we're calling the 2020 predictions. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Kimber. You know I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do tonight. For your kind consideration, you know what we're going to do? We are going to recalculate. We're going to pause. We're going to recalculate our original season preview and offer a brand new season preview and predictions and our thoughts on this truncated season. But before doing any of that, I have to introduce my guest tonight, which of course means I got to go all the way to the lake coast of America, nestled in the nation's capital, where she applies her skills as a master statistician. You know her as the lovely, the redoubtable Grace. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yes, I'm doing very well. You know, it's just a few days away from the beginning of the 2020 Formula One season. So yeah,
yes.
I'm doing well.
And it's almost July here in DC, which means it's just 1,000% humidity and nobody goes outside, which is good because nobody's supposed to go outside anyway. So
That's right. It's warm here too.
Shut it down.
Shut up, Paul. I haven't introduced you yet.
Listen, Texas.
Keep it down, Texas.
Shut it down.
This is between Missouri and D.C. right now. Oh, boy. You know, you try. All right. Well, you heard the voice of...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
And that's what you know him as, the International. We are allowed to call him occasionally Paul. Paul, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay.
Good.
For those of you watching, obviously I'm supporting West Ham United tonight in the hopes that they can actually win something before all hope is lost before the end of this rebooted season. I think I was hoping this is one sport that didn't actually get rebooted because then we could stay in the Premiership. But
well, congrats to Liverpool, though.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. You know, Paul, when you were coaching me on trying to pick a team in the Premier League, and I was saying, it must be said, you never put pressure on me to select West Ham.
No.
You made it well known that
you're
a West Ham fan.
Years and decades of torment is why I didn't want to put you through that.
Right. And I'm glad you didn't, because you guys suck.
Yep.
So, Paul, and finally I said, Paul, I don't know anything about the Premier League. I don't know anything about the fans of each team and what they're like. I have no idea. I don't know. I'll just pick one. Arsenal. I don't know. And you were like, yeah, it's a safe bet.
No, I didn't. I said Arsenal. No. I hate Arsenal.
Do you?
That's what I said.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
And the show's over.
But for success on the pitch, better bet than West Ham, at least certainly right now anyway.
Yeah. Because you said you want to pick somebody that isn't like always dominant where they get all the shtick. But
right. The easy buy.
Yeah. Pick a relatively successful team that's always in the Premier League, and you can cheer for them. And
get some wins, have a couple of cups, a couple of European appearances.
Yeah.
Arsenal probably pretty good for that.
Fit the bill, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when you're a West Ham fan, you have to bring your Tito's vodka with you just in case you need to drown your sorrows.
The whole bottle. Wow.
Well, yeah.
Chortle.
Actually, a friend of mine, Alex Herndon, he helps us out in the McLaren, or helped us out in the McLaren stuff. He's also a driver, indoor kart champion, and all this kind of stuff. He lives in Austin, and that's where they make Tito's, and he also works for Tito's. So I was down there last, and he gave me a big bottle of Tito's, because I think they give them to him like as they leave every day. And
like when you badge out, they just hand it to you.
He said, for this, just one thing, you've got to promise to mention it on the podcast. So there you go. I did it.
Tito's is a good product.
It's a bit late, sorry, Alex, but there's been a lot going on.
Yeah, well, I haven't had Tito's.
There you go.
Very good. Yeah.
Solid product.
Very solid.
I endorse it.
I tweeted a picture of my Father's Day gift. You saw that, right?
Did, yes. Very nice.
Yeah, I had a nice selection of St. Barnabas and Chimay.
How do you go from that to Corona? I don't even get it.
No, I don't drink Corona
Stella.
that much.
I don't even understand.
Well, Stella's in a panic when you go to a pub here in the States and you say, what kind of Belgian beers you have? We got Stella. Yeah.
You have to order by like type or color.
Right.
Yeah.
Not by country.
Just nothing in a green bottle. That's the first starting point.
Yeah, no. So Rolling Rock is out.
Yeah, Rolling Rock is out. Now the funny thing is, when you ask, oh, what's your beer selection, at places, and back when you could actually go to a restaurant and order things, you go Bud Light, Coors Light, Milwaukee Draft. It's like, can you just stop? Just stop right now. Just say we got the regular domestic stuff, and then we got this stuff. So let's just skip the three-minute diatribe about stuff in a can.
Right. Yeah, it's to the point now, and Grace, maybe you do the same thing. You go and say, what kind of beer do you have? And skip all the domestics.
I just ask for, what do you have that I can't see through?
Yes.
Ooh,
good.
Nice.
Good. Well, I just had one of those last night. I had a Grand Reserve Chimay, and you can't see through that baby, and it was good.
There you go. It's a good choice. So I think that's always good. It
was the Chimay Blue, which is good. Although I really do like the Chimay White.
The white is the best. The blue is a little more common, a little easier to get a hold of. So.
Yeah, the red, it has some very interesting complexity to it. It's really good. It's yummy. But I like the white, and I do like the blue St. Barnabas. It's really good too. Can't see.
Yeah, St. Barnabas is.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Welcome to the beer show, everybody.
I was just gonna say, so I see how it is. Paul and I have been we've been trying to get the wine and cheese podcast for eons now, but apparently as long as we just talk about beer, we can talk about this as long as we want. Got it.
We've been shut down.
I can do this.
Shut down for so many years, Grace.
I know, right?
Down by the man right there. Yep.
That's Paul wasn't afraid to admit to me they like Foster's Australian for beer.
Oh.
Yeah. Even I've said that before, and our Australian listeners will email me and say, Todd, that's not Australian for beer. That's crap.
Yeah.
Stop saying that.
Please. You're bringing the whole continent down.
I know. And they don't deserve it, damn it. Yeah. We love our Australian fans.
Everything is trying to kill you, including their beer.
Everything is trying to kill you.
Except for those cute little quokkas.
Yes.
Oh, Paul, those are awesome.
Aren't they?
Yeah. So Paul found these little, what are they called?
Quokkas.
Yeah, they look like
Quokkas.
It's like the animal version of Daniel Ricciardo.
It is.
Aww.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a big smile on their face.
Big smile. It's just, it's great.
Yeah. I was a little bummed out that day, and I found that picture, and so I'm like, boom. There you go.
That's good.
You need more capybara pictures in your life. Those are always great.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're buddies with everybody.
It's good.
There you go.
The wild monkeys.
We have segued from beer to animals. I'm excited to see what we come up with next.
Clearly, we haven't quite switched from off-season to on-season yet, right? Like, we've been on off-season for so long.
We got to stop because we are just a few days away from the beginning of the
Here's our new segment, Zoo News.
Got it. I got lots of zoo news. I could do this. Peacock spiders, they're great.
Yeah, no, let's stop.
What? Okay, after this podcast, look up peacock spiders.
Okay.
No.
They're little.
I'll just
do
it when Todd's talking about the first.
There you go.
Look it up now.
Oh my gosh, this is so sad.
Oh my gosh.
No, I was talking about when he met Christian Horner again. Hold on.
That's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Okay, Christian.
Sorry,
sir.
Oh my God.
Everybody drink. There you go.
Everybody drink. All right. So here's what I thought we'd do. We are going to talk about the season as we know it. Certainly, there's a lot of blank spaces to be filled in regards to the season, namely how many races we'll actually have. That's kind of a biggie. But we're going to go on what we know now. And there's real no rhyme or reason, but I'm going to go through a couple topics that are very, and I do underscore, very loosely tied together. I'm going to offer a few bullet points that are my thoughts. Now, my thinking here, folks, is that I'm going to offer a couple key thoughts about these subjects. And my thinking is that my expert co-hosts are really going to seize that content and offer their own incredibly insightful, because my stuff is rather pedestrian and I'm not a revelator here. I'm just getting the conversation started. But wait till you hear what Grace and Paul have to say. So that's my hope.
He's taking no ownership of this podcast.
None.
Not at all.
None. Totally bailed. Pulled the ripcord on this thing. I am out.
If it goes out on fire, it's all your fault.
I'm muting my mic and letting you guys go at this point.
No, don't mute your mic. Just throw it off and make as much noise as possible.
Right. I could do that. I could rustle around.
There you go.
So, all right. First loose category here is all right. Let's talk about the races up first and the season up first and the timing. This is all based around the time. So we've got reduced races and multiple circuit races. So right now we know of 8 races and that they've done. So we know that right now. Now Total Wolf, he says that he thinks that the season they can pull off at least 12, possibly 15 races. But regardless of the speculation, let's argue somewhere between 8 and 15-ish, whatever. So with that in mind, we have a what I would say is a compressed season, and this brings a reduced amount of time for any mistakes, whether those be mechanical failures or more urgent issues that come up, anything like that. The urgency to hit the ground running with very little margin for error, and that's just on the team side of the equation. I guess, Paul, let me start with you. So 8-ish, 15 races, a truncated season, but it's all jammed and compressed on the time because of the 3 months we've lost. There's literally no room for those mistakes. And I would even argue, in free practice 2, they went off, broke a front wing, This all of a sudden starts to get really, really serious really quickly when you have such a compressed schedule. It's not that it isn't in a normal season, but I think the compression of that schedule is what's going to create the real complexity around this.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to know how teams go about it, because less races means every race is more important. So success of every race holds a lot more weight, right?
Yep.
But on the flip side is if you don't finish a race, that has even bigger an impact. Right. So where do you weigh the pushing the limits to be ultimately successful at each weekend versus just surviving the weekend, coming home with some points to kind of build so you don't basically find yourself really on the back foot as you're chasing a season that you don't know when the end is. I mean, it's hard to come up with a strategy when you don't know when the end of the race is, right? So I'm not even sure how I would approach it mentally as a driver or as a team, really. But I'm sure they are going through all these scenarios of like, what is our strategy? Are we going to be aggressive? Are we going to go for points? Are we going to go for wins? And because the season could shut down at any point, or are we basically going to have to play it a little safer with our driving, what we do with our drivers, how we engineer the car during the weekend, and how we bring in the upgrades? Because once again, you bring in upgrades, they don't work. That's 1/8 of the season blowing because that front wing didn't work. So it's going to take a lot of thinking by all the teams to know which way they're going to go, and all of them are going to approach it probably from a very different angle, I would imagine.
Paul brings up a good point, Grace. I did read some commentary from some pundits in the pit lane that were saying, hey, look, it is this compressed season, so I think everybody's going to come out going after this like, with hammer and tongs on this deal. But Paul brings up a good point. How aggressive or risk-taking are you about trying to really throw down the gauntlet versus, because a simple off in qualifying or something like that, really trying to go over the line in performance could put you at the back of the grid, and there's one race and 1/8 of a season gone, or 1/12 of a season gone. And so how risky do you really get, or do you play it relatively safe to maximize at least finish positions, getting the car home, bringing in a nice, not the total, but a nice haul of points, and then really kind of take it down to that 8th, 12th, 15th, the last 3 or 4 races, and really try to make a home run out of it. How do you run that strategy?
I think the midfield will be where this is interesting, right? I think if you are Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, you're going to play the long game, even if the long game is only 8 races, maybe 15 races. I think
Right.
I would play it more conservative, also because you have the power. You know that you have the ability to win right out of the box, right? No matter what, those 3 teams are going to be pretty strong out of the box unless somebody really mucks something up. I think where it's going to be interesting, right, is the Racing Points, the Haases, the Renaults, the people that are like, let's just go, right? Like, let's do this, as much as one does in Formula One. So I think that is, that's kind of always where it's interesting in the beginning of the season, to kind of see how the mid pack kind of sort out, because they're not going to necessarily be just great out of the box. And I think if you're Williams, just like, what the hell, just, we have one wing, go, right? Just hope for the best. Unless you're going to use like your second driver as like an enforcer, like in hockey, and is just going to like take everybody else out so that you can win. Yeah, something like that, right? Like
that comes Maldonado.
Yeah, Latifi's rolling out. You just knock everybody off the track for me.
Of course.
That's strange. I wonder what's causing all the accidents.
Although I did hear Haas weren't coming with any wings, because what's the point?
Right.
We don't need to put wings on.
Grosjean's just going to knock him off anyway, whatever.
It's an advantage, I'll admit, but not that big of a one.
Not that big one. We don't need it. It costs money. I don't know if I'm going to have money for a wing. What?
Who knows?
Fine.
Who knows? It's a good point, Grace. They got nothing to lose in the midfield at this point.
No, right. You're
as far as finishing 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th in the championship, all that's worth millions of dollars. But why not go for it and try to finish instead of 6th, try to get 5th or 4th. And if they don't and they're back in 6th, 7th, well, that's kind of where they were anyway.
And a lot more of those midfield people have a chance of doing that, right? Over the long
that's right.
season, the cream of the crop pull away. But with the scenario with a lot shorter season, anything, let's just say McLaren with the cream of the crop in the midfield, they have a couple of bad weekends. They weren't able to pay their hotel bill and everyone to sleep in the tent outside. They didn't do very well, right? That everything could flip-flop. AlphaTauri, Kimi Räikkönen has a good couple of races and everything turns up on his ear.
That's a good point. Let's just start Kimi Räikkönen. Let's tell Kimi Räikkönen it's Spa, right? It's after the summer break. You're just got 8 races left. Just go, right? Because he always like sort of picks it up at the end of the season when there's like 6 or 7 races left. So maybe this really plays to Kimi's strength. It's just a hobby and he just wants to race 8 races. This is an ideal scenario.
It is, right? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, the drivers, Paul, they can't be making any mistakes either. And I'm not just talking about the race, but this is really all 3 sessions over a weekend, including critical qualifying in the race. But these Friday practice sessions are going to be huge in harvesting data for development in a very compressed time frame, and they can't be making a bunch of mistakes there. They've got to be driving those programs. No mistakes in qualifying or you're mired at the back, and that's not good. No mistakes in the race. There's a lot of pressure on these drivers. The shorter the season, the more pressure there is.
Yeah, and obviously those first 2 races are going to be even higher pressure because they really have been off for longer than they've ever been out of a race car in their life. And I think we talked about it last week, right? How do you prepare? How do you get up to speed as a driver when you've been off for so long? And so everyone's going to do differently and actually get back to their level at a different rate. So the first couple of races can be pivotal. Once again, really crucial, because there isn't that many races to go. But you really need to maximize each session. Now, with the engine program, are they still 3 engines for the whole season? And we just don't know when the season ends? Is that?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't recall seeing a reduction in that.
Okay. So
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, if you out there listening know that.
Because we generally see a lot of sitting around in the practices, etc. And I'm wondering if that is actually going to be the case this year, or everyone really knows that they need to get every single lap out of their cars and find out as much information as they can and not have to gauge how much engine use they've got, etc. on the car.
Right.
So I have a random question, and I don't know the answer to this either. So, right, in any given race weekend, right, there's all the other support races that happen, but some of those probably, I guess, won't happen, right? Like the rich guys driving Ferraris, right? I can see that doesn't happen maybe, but I don't know how, I never thought about like what the other supporting series are doing or the lower level series are doing as far as their schedules, and if they just follow whatever Formula
like
One
F2.
does.
Yeah, I think they're mirroring the F1, aren't they?
I don't
In some
think
of these
they're.
venues, no.
I think they're minimizing how many,
Yeah.
because sometimes there's 3 or 4 support series, and obviously they're going to prioritize the F2. But yeah, you're right. I haven't actually looked at the F2 season. I think at Silverstone I saw there was going to be 2 support series, but I haven't heard what's happening. Actually,
No, because I was thinking, because then maybe you have more flexibility or more time, because on a regular race weekend, there's racing, from 8 in the morning until, 6 at night, right? And Formula One goes last, but the whole day is pretty full. So I just don't, maybe they can race at different times, take more time. Maybe there's more flexibility because it's just like, 2 other supporting races and there's no, kids racing, muttons or something,
Oh.
You'd be in for that, right? That's the rodeo. That's totally different sort of thing.
Yeah, my daughter won that actually one time at the fair.
That's great.
Riding a sheep. Yeah.
See, so I don't know. That just dawned on me that there's all this other stuff that usually happens in a race weekend that I didn't think to look at that either. I barely made it through the MotoGP and the Formula One schedule, let alone anybody.
Right. Yeah, I haven't either. Actually, you're right. Everything's a moving target. Even the IMSA schedule changed this week, so we still don't know what's going to happen. It could change at any moment.
Yeah.
So you've got basically a truncated season. We're going to have these, 2 races. In my mind, I think this whole feature of the concept of sort of, circuit corrected, we would have done a lot better. Those things are a reality, I think. I think they're true in that sense. But with 2 Austrias and 2 Silverstones or whatever they end up doing, that's obviously going to favor some teams' packages over others. And that, in my mind, is a handicap for some and a terrific bonus for others. If you think back to last year, Red Bull's fortune changed at Austria. And now they've got 2 races there. So, could we see Red Bull come out and start very strong where normally their previous performance in recent years has always been kind of a slow start, and then they come on strong at the towards the backside of the season. Well, we're starting at Austria, a track that they typically have done well at. Could this mean that Red Bull come out of the gates pretty darn strong?
Yeah, I mean, I think they were already coming with a different approach for this year anyway, right? I mean, we saw that in the preseason testing, et cetera, that
they were.
Red Bull weren't coming with let's just kind of see how it goes and change and evolve the car. It seemed like they were pretty aggressive with the car from the outset. So
yeah,
I think that's already changed. With Austria being as it is, I mean, yes, they've had success. They're kind of nearly against where their car is to some degree, but they have historically had good luck there. I mean, obviously the Mercedes went out last year, and that allowed Max and Charles to fight out for the lead. Otherwise, I still think Mercedes still have a better car for there.
Yeah.
But yeah, for whatever reason, Red Bull do end up getting great results there. So it could be very, very much so that the Red Bull are actually on top when we come out of there. I'm really interested to see the evolving of the teams and the cars from one week to the next, which we'd never seen before.
Right.
And if you're dominant on week 1, is that an automatic you're dominant on week 2? Or you'll start to see which team can really think and change on the fly in that week and maybe come back with a much better car the second week. That I'm really interested to see which teams are better at adapting their setup, their strategy, to actually gain even while they're racing on the same track.
Yeah, the only time we ever get to see that sort of back-to-back action like that is testing, but everyone's on a different program, so we don't really know. And in this case, they're going to race at Austria, and let's say you're Carlos Sainz, you finish 5th in a McLaren, and you want to do better, maybe 6th, and you want to do better. How much development, how much setup change, how much strategy, whatever it is, how much can that team do within that week's time frame at the same track, going back at it in anger? Is it just like if Lewis wins in Austria, he's a shoo-in for the following week? Or can the teams really up the game for the same circuit knowing what they know. Typically, yeah, they're going to make developments, but it's always, have we had back-to-back races? Yes, but the next race is a different track, different circumstances. That's eliminated from the equation, barring some sort of weather conditions. So it'll be interesting. Agreed. Let's talk about, we mentioned testing a little bit. And there were some woes in testing, and certainly, and I'm looking at you, Ferrari. There were some concerns out of testing with Mercedes and Renault openly discussing their upgrades that they already have. And Mercedes sounds like they've got an upgrade for damn near the whole car. Others are bringing them as well for this first race. And who will have already solved for testing's deficiencies from the winter test? They haven't ran these in anger, but they ran these in testing.
How much can you do over a Zoom meeting?
About as much as anyone else can do over.
There you go. Well, then there's your answer. I mean, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not like they've been able to, be in the factories or in the shops or whatever doing stuff, right? Like they got
Maybe
Adrian
they
Newey.
haven't. Maybe they
haven't.
I don't know, right? I don't know. You got like Adrian Newey on Skype and just doing the best you can. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I don't. When did they all go back to the factory? Or was that just
a couple of weeks ago?
Everyone had their own thing. Sorry, didn't I?
Didn't mean to bore you. Right. It probably was for everybody, but the two British headquartered teams.
Right.
They all went back at the same time.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Have we got a bigger gap where they go back and are back at work, being able to build new parts, etc.? Have we got a bigger amount of time here that they could possibly have a lot more upgrades ready for this race than they would have in between Australia and wherever the next race was going to be?
Right.
I mean, they've got to have a good strategy for upgrades. As you pointed out, Todd, Mercedes basically had the upgrades already ready for after Australia during preseason testing.
Right.
They just don't have time to actually put them on the car and get them going. But now they've had that time. So it's going to be interesting to know how that's all developing. And now that less people are allowed to go to the track, does that give the teams more people at their home base to develop parts more quickly? More hands on the jobs.
Well, and that brings up a good point. A compressed schedule means that all of those in-season developments will now be compressed as well, and with fewer races to correct those issues, there's precious little time to develop solutions. And this leaves me thinking Mercedes has an advantage once again in this field. But Paul, you bring up a good point. If a lot of those people that would have been at the circuit, that would have been instrumental in harnessing the type of data information that they want for possible upgrades to the car, if some of those people aren't there and they're back at the factory actually developing those pieces and parts and working on it, is that a benefit? Don't know. But suffice to say that the compressed development, a compressed race schedule means a compressed development schedule. There's not a lot of time, and there's not a lot of time to try that, and it didn't work at Hungary, so we're going to do it at the next race, and we'll fix it for the next race. There's just not a lot of time for that. It's almost like this stuff has to be rapid prototyped and proven to actually make a significant impact, or they just don't bring it.
Right. I mean, it's got to do with how good are they at testing their developments before they actually put them on the car. I mean, we know sometimes teams come with a development and it doesn't work. Some are a little iffy and some work great. So it's not a slam dunk that whatever you're coming up with is going to work either. No teams get it right all the time.
Yeah, they just don't have a lot of time to sort of, it didn't quite work the way we had hoped it had. Oh, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board.
Right.
There's not a lot of time for that. And a big question might be, has Ferrari taken this shutdown time to cure a very serious concern based on winter testing results? Could they come out swinging, and how will they match Mercedes and Red Bull's development schedule? It seems to me, and this is a gut reaction, I could be 100% wrong on this, but my gut reaction, it seems that teams like Red Bull and Mercedes develop pretty rapidly. and have during the season more rapidly than maybe Ferrari has. I don't know if that's a case of Ferrari's really measuring twice and cutting once. And if the other teams are doing more rapid prototyping and doing proof of concepts and then taking them, I don't know.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, Ferrari seem to go fully committed on a certain direction, don't they?
Yeah.
And sometimes when that doesn't work, they're just like, well, we're done, you know.
Right.
The other teams seem to be a little more agile with their developments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ferrari's the Titanic.
We win it all, or we don't win nothing.
That's right.
Right.
This is the direction we're going now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and I think it'll be interesting too, because how much money one has to spend on these things too would make it,
Yep.
how that also would play into your ability. I mean, I guess I was thinking, like, we were talking about a couple weeks, who knows, day 972. We were talking about the cost cap, right? And then one of the things was they were like, oh, Williams, you'll get more, wind tunnel time. But if they can't afford it, then that's great, right? Or if they don't have the facilities to do these extra testing things, right? It's the same idea. Like, at some point, you only have so much prototyping you can do, or so much either intellectual capability or
you're limited by your own assets, no matter what someone tells you can do, right?
Yes. Yeah, right. What that guy said. Exactly. So so I think that's going to be a component of it too, is that Mercedes has X number more people than Renault has, or than Williams has, or Racing Point has. So
which is when we're talking about the back-to-back weekends, like Mercedes come in there with all their knowledge and all their background and all their research they've done. Is that going to enable the lesser teams with lesser assets to actually shorten that gap a little bit easier, because Mercedes come in there with everything they know, right? But the other team, maybe they can close that gap a little bit. That's what I'm kind of thinking might happen in between race week 1 and 2 at the same track.
Yeah, it could be like every race is Australia or something, right? Like, nobody knows, and we're just going to go and see how it goes.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, because I think a compressed schedule, Ferrari doesn't have time to take time for the development. I mean, they're going to have to seriously look and say, well, we would have typically brought up grades on these races in this time of the season, and barring some sort of elements that we didn't like that are producing performances that we didn't like, we'd throw in a few extra upgrades at this time frame, just as sort of emergency upgrades and all that. This is now almost to the point, to Grace's point, if you've got the money, you've got to be working upgrades constantly through the season. And the other thing on that front, Grace, is that with Mercedes and their effort and their approach to it, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they go to Austria, have a race, and by the very next week have completely different front wing. Yeah,
it's basically like an elimination challenge on Top Chef, right? Like, you got one race weekend.
Ooh, I love those.
Yeah, right? Here's something. Also, we need a champagne Padma the first week. It'll be great. So I think that, right? You kind of, everything is just now like that, right? And you're going to have people that are going to be successful in that environment. And then you're going to have, your Brian Vatagios who never win an elimination challenge because they just can't get their heads around it. So, I think you're going to see that some teams are going to really thrive. And maybe this will be a turning point for Ferrari, right? You could see that too. Maybe, I don't want that, but that could happen. Like, they have this particular way of doing things. Well, that's all out the window. We can't operate that way. So maybe this other way, they realize, oh, I can do elimination challenges. Let's go. We can always work this way.
But remember, when we were talked about earlier about the ideology of the team, and are you going to be aggressive or are you going to be a little restrained in what you do? You bring updates every weekend. You're going to be chasing a new car every weekend.
That's true.
Do you be a little less aggressive with how quickly you bring the upgrades? Make sure the upgrades are really vetted before you put them on, so that car a little better when you go to these other races. So, because if you just keep chasing a new setup every session, you'll never figure it out. There comes a time where you need to slow that down and just develop slowly what you have rather than just try and change everything every session.
Right. Yeah, you bring up a great point. If you're throwing new crap on every weekend, yeah, you're chasing that as well, and that's a dynamic you'd probably rather not be in either.
Yeah, and I don't know what the logistics of getting stuff places are now either, right? Because like we'd always see all the big upgrades at Catalunya, right? You know, the European stint was would you see all these traditional, you know, changes of the cars. I don't know what that looks like now that we're kind of
Every race is a Catalunya, I think.
right? There you go.
Well, we know that
every race is crab track. Got it.
We know that Patty always just brought the development upgrades on his flight with him.
Right.
And he put it in the overhead above him.
Yeah.
The wing kind of stuck out funny, right?
Just make sure you check in with your team owner, make sure they know they're there. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Claire.
I don't know whose luggage this is, but it's going on the floor. I need all of this space.
My nose cone.
It's
That's
crazy.
all I have.
As Ferrari, also, I'm kind of interested in the notion that Ferrari, obviously being very important to Alfa Romeo and Haas, how much time will they have to assist these customer teams, given their own compressed and pressured schedule? And I'm not picking on just Ferrari. Mercedes has customers too, but how much time will they have to worry about Gene Haas's issues when they themselves only have 8, 10, 12 races?
Were they worrying about them before?
Well, the assumption I'm making here, Grace, is that yes, they have been, but
I don't know.
won't.
I'm just, you know, the old Bridgestone philosophy, right? I
Right,
don't know.
right.
But you're right. Now I'm sure they probably don't, right? They're too busy like trying to get dinner on their own table to worry about somebody else's dinner. You know?
Right. And we know that there's less personnel able to go from race to race, so that means there's less outside personnel from Ferrari or Mercedes or whatever, Renault, you know, being able to be allocated to other people, other teams as well.
Right.
You know, they're looking after themselves. And I think it's definitely that where, okay, here's your engine. Good luck. We'll talk to you on Monday at the board meeting, you know, but it's going to be fully focused on the team they're in at this point, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, with the reduced headcount, you probably can't afford to have a bunch of Ferrari dudes just standing around Haas and Alfa Romeo's garages assisting.
Right.
You know? I think that's an issue too. Well, let's talk about, Grace brought up the midfield, and I too am very curious about the midfield. Is there a possibility for Haas, McLaren, Racing Point, and Renault to have made significant gains during the shutdown?
No, yes, maybe, probably not.
No, yes.
Okay, next subject.
Okay, done. Thanks for listening. Be sure to stop by the website. I like that.
Just hit that little 30-second button to know what she was actually on.
Right.
That's right.
So, have they made significant gains during the shutdown? And could we see a real challenge to McLaren's fourth place in the championship, but by the other teams? To that point, Grace, you're saying any significant performance gains during this shutdown, what midfield teams could have possibly made the best out of this shutdown and the economic impact? We know McLaren is on the ropes, and Williams. You know, I have to think that in some large part why Mercedes and Ferrari and maybe Red Bull were solving their testing woes, these teams were trying to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And paychecks going, and how much time would they have had to try to solve any of these issues they had in testing?
I think of all of them. So as a McLaren fan, I always just expect that McLaren will shoot themselves in the foot. They'll have a good season. They'll do something to themselves and they'll end up 8th, you know, or something. Instead of everybody else catching up to them, they'll just do something. But I'm always prepared for that. I think Haas is as always, they're just too much in their own way. I don't know. They never seem to have it together. I think Racing Point, we've been holding our breath for years, right? It's kind of like, you know, Williams in that sense. We're like, this is the year that's, you know, they're going to do something. So they could, and Renault should, but I don't think they will. They probably have the most capability of rising higher in the midfield, but that just never seems to be the case either.
Yeah. I don't know. Paul, thoughts before I move on?
Well, I think Haas, obviously, as we know, they haven't done anything in the time they've had allocated, you know?
Yeah.
Just
I think
Steiner saying some great
I think Steiner's
stuff.
just been looking at what tie he wants to wear
Yeah.
because there's really no point. They're not developing that car. It seems pretty obvious with that.
He's going
right?
through his Grosjean pep talk, cards,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right.
what I'm going to yell at him on the radio. Nope, that's not good. No, not enough F words,
Yeah, yeah. And like McLaren, obviously,
F
they're
you.
Yeah.
Little cards he's writing.
yeah. So I think Haas are kind of they didn't look good, and they look even worse now. It's in my mind.
Yeah,
And
right.
I think
Right.
Williams must be licking their lips right now about that whole deal. McLaren, obviously, they've been financially. I think that's going to be a big distraction right now.
Yeah, it's got to be.
When there's a team that they don't know where the next penny is coming from, they're less likely to be pushing everything forward, right?
Yeah.
So I think an opportunity is there now that I didn't think possibly was going to be there before this whole thing hit against McLaren.
Yeah, right.
The Racing Point team, obviously, they came off testing with some great
with the pink Mercedes.
And I think they got a lot of momentum going in. I don't see any reason why they're not going to carry that through.
They got Checo.
And as Grace said, Renault have the resources to make something different, to change their car. So I think they're the most fluid team that can actually, even if they don't come out of the first race looking great, can actually adapt the car quicker and better than any of the other teams. I think Racing Point just come with a better car. Renault are going to chase them, and McLaren, I think, are going to struggle a little bit to keep the same form they did last year.
Yeah, it's a great point. I do.
Unless they do well, I think again, if they do really well out of the gate, McLaren, that could help them, right? Like even just to, buoy their spirit some. I think if they struggle in Austria, it's going to be hard to climb out of that, kind of because it's already played.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with both of you. I think the team really, for me in the midfield, that really should take advantage of this situation is Renault.
Get it together, Cyril Bitbull.
Yes.
We know you listen.
He's
watching you.
Does he need someone to tell him what we're saying? Or you think he can understand us?
Because we can't understand what he says?
Right.
Yeah. He lives on a different verbal level, I think.
I think everything should just be run through the Steiner, translator.
Oh, there you go.
Or the Flavio.
Jesus Christ.
Right. Nobody knows what Flavio says. That's worse. You can't.
No. God, can you imagine going to dinner with Flavio and Cyril?
No.
you'd be sitting there going, what the hell? What the hell?
God damn.
Oh, be like looking uncomfortably whether I don't know what they just said.
I don't know.
I don't want to be a pirate.
With little time, such as Steiner saying they'll just piddle around at the garage, in their own garage to practice the COVID-19 regulation.
Like it's Double Dare or something, right? I like that, or, American Ninja Warrior or something with COVID-19 practice, right?
Right. Will these midfield teams struggle under the new paddock cadence, forcing missteps and advantages over their rivals? Or will the big teams fall prey to this too? No. If you think about all of the compressed schedule, the pressures, the COVID regulations, X amount of people have allowed, in certain places, all of these things. And Steiner's like, not a big deal. We just practice in our garage. We're done. I'm just curious if some of these regulations will catch some of these teams out.
Well, if somebody gets sick, it will. But I think everybody's just going to do what they want to do because there seems to be no real discussion of enforcement. And like we were talking, I think last week, when the chips, the car gets rolled in and it's smoking, that stuff's going to go out the window, right? That's just not how people are. They're not going to be like, oh, wait, let me put on my gloves and my mask. No, they're just going to do their job. That's going to be what they do. So
you think there's going to be a lot of stop it? Else I'll say stop it again.
Yeah, right? They're just going to put a race director or somebody, like in each garage, right? Like an FIA person to go, I would advise you to not do that. I don't think it's gonna be, and that's why you have to have a bubble, right? Because then you don't have to worry as much about that, hopefully.
Right. Yeah, but as you say, Grace, it's like, what are the ramifications of not doing it right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a stop and go penalty? I don't think so.
Is it monetary only?
Yeah, I mean, just dealing with IMSA, it's just constant that we're all in this together. We've all got to do it right. We cannot get it wrong. It's first getting through this whole weekend clean without anyone doing the wrong thing, making sure everyone's buttoned up, and then let the racing be where it is. We're just trying to get our sport up and running again. And the competition side of it is obviously always going to be there, but getting it done correctly is from the IMSA side anyway, is emphasized as more important than, putting on a good race, for instance. Everyone really needs to stick by these rules. But I just feel like an organized team is going to be the strongest team in this fashion. So obviously there's bigger teams, but they're not necessarily like Ferrari, not necessarily the most organized team, right? There's smaller units that maybe run this thing more Ron Dennis style than some other teams do. So I think it's going to come to organizational adeptness rather than necessarily the money or not the money.
McLaren should call Ron Dennis. Why hasn't somebody?
He should be the monitor, the hall monitor in the back of the garage.
Yes, we found a role for him. Ron Dennis, your nose is sticking out.
We're getting Ron back to be our,
he's going to be in charge of the COVID punishment train.
I like it.
I like this. It's a genius. Look at you with all these great ideas, Paul, for fixing Formula One. How do we get John Todd to listen to this?
I don't know.
That's a great idea.
It'd be good.
Everything I say goes over his head. See what is it there? Thank you very much.
Yes, that's good. Has Renault finally got on top of their hybrid power unit, and can they mount an attack on their customer, McLaren, in the final year of McLaren's engine contract? What do you guys think?
No.
Yes.
Ooh. This just in, Paul disagrees with Grace.
I think usually that's the other way around. Usually I go, what Paul just said, that sounded good.
Yeah.
Better than whatever I was going to say.
We said at the same time. So.
All right, Paul,
rock, paper, scissors.
You go first. You justify why you believe that.
Well, we kind of already talked about it. I think it's not less to do with what Renault are capable of, and more to do with what McLaren are up against internally. As you know, I did a lot of stuff. I can kind of see the effects it has to the whole company, right? They're people after all. They're not just machines, and all these people are affected by people getting furloughed, people never coming back, all people getting reductions in pay, all this stuff. I think is really going to affect them this year, and I think this is Renault's chance to flex their manufacturing muscles to gain that advantage back that McLaren had got from it.
All right, and Grace, why do you think McLaren can overcome that?
No, I don't think Renault is going to get up to the challenge. They're still Renault.
They're still Renault. They're still Cyril.
You're just an anti-Frenchite. That's your.
That's it. That's me. I'm an anti-dentite too. No, they're just like I got lots of Seinfeld quotes, right? It's just going to keep moving like this, right, down instead of like McLaren going this way and Renault going this way, which is what should happen. But I think they're still Renault.
But also remember, Renault is not their engine next year.
Right.
They got no reason to really buoy McLaren's finishing position in the championship if they don't need to. They can go through the motions. They can do what was on the contract, but they don't need to go above and beyond to make McLaren more competitive than they need to be.
Right. I don't know. I guess I assume people write contracts in a way that would be prepared for that. That's always a possibility.
There's always a fuzzy area.
I guess you're right.
How much information do we need to relay?
It's
Cyril's
just a
talking
crate.
to Zach and going, "Oh, really? You didn't get that email with the firmware upgrade?
Sorry,
really?
I sent it to you. It's on page
spam
495 about the reset.
I sent it to you 3 weeks ago. Check your spam filter. I don't know.
You get it next week. You get it next race. Don't worry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just have no faith in Renault's ability to get out of their own way.
All right. Testing suggested, and I do say suggested, that Williams may have made a pace jump. So could Russell and Latifi give the team a shot to move up?
Up from last?
Yes.
There's no other way. I
could
don't think so.
Keep you last.
I
You
think
think
they
they'll
might
be
be able
last?
to. I think they can compete with Haas a little bit from time to time. I still don't think,
Yeah.
it's a night and day scenario for them, but I think they'll be more competitive. I'm not sure they can be competitive enough to actually beat a team above them.
Okay. And where do we see the two Alpha teams?
Two Alpha teams?
AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo.
Oh, okay. You need to enunciate differently. They sounded like the same word.
Alpha and Alpha.
AlphaTauri, Tauri, and Alfa Romeo. Sorry.
Yeah.
One with the great logo, the one with the boring logo.
Right. Gracie, would you like to go first?
Yes.
I think they will be not last,
You think they'll be ahead of Williams?
but not in the midfield. Haas may fall down there, but I don't think they're going to make their way up
So you
there.
see the back of their grid being Williams, then Haas, then one of the Alpha teams.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm. Remember,
One or
Alpha came
both.
second in the last race of the season, correct?
Yeah.
In Brazil.
Like
Was that last race last year? I don't know. When was last year?
I don't know.
remember.
Did we have a season last year? I
Yeah,
can't remember
yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, I
It
think
is
Alpha
still March.
Tauri are stronger than Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
Because Alpha
Yes.
Tauri
Right. I agree with that.
have those little sporadic
Right.
Yeah.
races where they're, where do they come from? They're in the top six.
Well,
Alfa Romeo,
They got the
Don't have
Gasly.
they've got the Gasly. Yeah.
So
Right.
Tori, maybe, you've been talking about, is somebody going to spoil this, right? Is somebody going to jump in there that we're not expecting? AlphaTauri, I think, is a strong
you
case
go.
for somebody who may just show up for a race, or just, where the hell those guys come from,
Because they got the Franz toast,
That's right. He's pretty good with Zoom, I hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And he looks great in that AlphaTauri, action wear.
I just think of all the people good with Zoom, it would not be Franz Toast, but
He's a
whatever.
great on-the-spot interview, too, in the middle of
He
the
is.
That's
weekend.
right. That's right. Hey guys. Oh,
He's
my God.
he's a bit like Maurizio was.
And it's always a big emotion.
Yeah. When he's talking, it sounds like, his boring uncle called him, and he's like, oh.
He does.
Liven it up a little bit here, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to wind. Yeah, that's 2 minutes of talking. That's enough for me.
We're good. Thanks.
You
That's a good
slip in-
strategy, though, right? You could just never get interviewed because you're just boring, and so then people will
Right.
just leave you alone.
Yeah, it's true. If the media feels like talking to you is like talking to Charlie Brown's teacher, then at that point you're like, wah, wah, wah,
Yeah.
wah.
You get back to the hotel earlier,
Right.
You don't get bothered at dinner, no phone calls.
Cruise around for your snacks and head
That's
on
what he
out.
did. I was there. I was there. I was standing right there. Who was at that party? I'm going to tell you. It was
You were.
myself, and I was standing with Sir Jackie Stewart, chatting with him.
Mario Andretti?
Mario came later.
Okay.
When Bernard Charles Eccleston was there, Horner, Toto Wolff came in, and then hold on, who else was they?
If I'm not mistaken, the Foo Fighters were playing that gig, right?
Eric Booyah was there,
Oh, that guy.
Oh.
Oh,
Yes.
I missed him.
and the whole time I was like,
he's my
dude,
LinkedIn friend.
that guy looks like Oliver Platt to me.
Wait, did you just say he's your LinkedIn friend?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
That's
yeah.
great. That's awesome.
Me and Eric.
Oh,
Hi,
my
Eric.
gosh.
I hope all's well
We're-
with you.
We're first level guys.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
That's great.
Don't
So-
need Kevin Bacon to intervene.
Did he friend you or did you friend him?
It was kind of mutual. Kind of all at the same time. It was weird.
That's so funny.
But ever since, we haven't looked back, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Magical.
leaked in love. So anyway, so then Franz comes in. Nobody talks to him. Everybody's kind of sitting there. He's just kind of circles the whole room. Nobody engages him. He stands at a table by himself for a little while. Nobody engages him. He goes over, grabs an appetizer, comes back to the table, kind of sits there. Nobody does. And right at that moment, I thought, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go talk to Franz. And I start walking over there. I get about 30 feet from him. He just turns on his heels. It's not that he saw me coming. He was done. He just turns on his heels and leaves. I mean, he's like, gone. And I go, well, damn, I got to hurt. So I'm hustling, and I go out there to try to catch up with him.
My pen.
Yeah. I'm like, Franz.
That's my dollar.
I get out there. I was like 20 feet behind him. And I get out there and the cab's like, taking off. Like, damn, dude. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a dream gig.
That's how he does it.
That's how he does it, man.
Yeah.
That's how it rolls.
Made an
All
appearance
right.
somehow.
Let's talk about drivers. So there's a couple of rivalries that have my attention for this season. The first one is Daniel Ricciardo versus Esteban Ocon. Very intrigued in that one. My second one I'm watching closely is Charles Leclerc and Sebastian Vettel. These are two drivers, talking about Ricciardo and Vettel. These are two scenarios that have nothing to lose against their younger rookies. Nothing at this point. The Ocon versus Ricciardo is important. That's an important one for me to show Renault why Ocon was the right driver to pick. And if he has any hope of getting some clawback rights to Bottas's seat, then he's going to want to put in a great performance at Renault against Dan Ricciardo, who we all know is nobody's chump. And Dan has nothing to lose at this point. And if Renault does kind of have an opportunity in the midfield to take it to McLaren and get best of the rest, then Dan will be all for that. Did I mention that I was interested to see? Yes. Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc. Yes. Yeah. So those are two that I'm interested in seeing. I'm also curious to see Latifi versus Russell. Yes, Paul, I am.
That's the one everyone's waiting for.
I can't
Fireworks, baby.
Just biting her nails, man. Oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Oh my gosh, Russell's not last. Now he's last. No, he's not last. Woo! They're passing for last. No, and here's my reasoning. There's a lot to play for in that because Williams is on the chopping block to be sold, and Russell needs to make a move for that seat that Valtteri has next year. He's got to do something to get out of that team. And, it's a shame he's mired there in the back. So that seat, Valtteri's going to want that Mercedes seat. Ocon's going to want that Mercedes seat. And just about every driver who's out of a contract is going to want that Mercedes seat. And if Russell wants it, he's got to do something. And so I'm interested to see how that goes. Yep.
All right, so I'm going first. Buzz. I'm going first. What I think would be interesting is Ocon and Russell, right? So
I do too.
Circle for the square, I will go with Paul Charsley. No, I think that because Russell, everybody rates Russell high, right? Like everybody's like, oh, Russell, he's this great driver, even though we've seen nothing from George because he's been in a Williams. But that has to work in his favor that he has all this positive buzz, even though we haven't seen it on the track. Ocon, however, is at a better team than Williams. So if Ocon has a rough season, I wonder how much that positive, because everybody seems to be really positive about Ocon too.
Right.
So if Russell just keeps it this and Ocon does this, I think you're going to still hear all this like positive buzz about Russell that you won't now hear about Ocon.
Right. It's a good point. Although Ocon was the only guy to show up in Australia with a face mask.
Wow. Maybe he should be in charge of Ferrari's operations then.
Right. He's in the safety committee.
It's Esteban Fauci.
Yeah.
That's
was he wearing, like a Dayglow vest as well?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's good.
Hand
He's out there
sanitizer
taking
for
everyone's
everybody.
temperatures.
That's what we need. We need Ron Dennis with hand sanitizer and a thermometer, right? Like just That'd be great.
Nice,
I want
Ron.
to see this. This is
And
such
the-
a great idea.
Ron walking around the paddock with a rag and Lysol, spraying everything down, wiping it down.
Oh, and a stick, and a 6-foot-long stick, right?
Yes, poking.
You're too
and
close. You're
spraying
too
and then
close.
wiping everything.
Break it up, people.
Yeah.
No, he needs with the grabber end on it, like you were saying for the trophies, right? Like,
Yeah.
see, like he needs a 6-foot grabber stick, right? So you can just like, here's your hand sanitizer, don't touch me.
Right. Ron running around the paddock with a shepherd's hook, pulling people
No.
around.
Where's your mask?
The whole paddock has like $50 million worth of penalties by the end of the weekend.
You know who won this race? I did. I'm the only person who doesn't have a penalty.
I saved
John Todd
everyone's
got one.
life. I saved your life. I saved your life. You could see Ron doing that.
That would be
You
great.
could.
You're all alive because of me. This is my trophy.
Man. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Also, the Lewis and Valtteri, that's going to be interesting. Certainly, Lewis has been very steeped in the current causes that he's championing and the discussions that he's leading on that front, while Valtteri is quite possibly fighting for a career beyond 2020 in F1, not just the Mercedes seat, but I would say any seat in Formula One. Could Beardy Bottas make his move in 2020 while Lewis is focused on much more important issues than racing? But could Valtteri say, hey, look, I'm going in. I've got to, be singular focused here. Could he catch Lewis doing important work and not, totally focused? Or will Lewis rise to the occasion, show up with the killer instinct that he always has? How do you think
Well, here's the interesting thing is that what we've seen from Lewis is similar to what we've seen from Red Bull
Yep.
over a season championship.
He gets super unbeatable at the end of the season.
But he warms up to the car and the process, and that's where his teammates have made points on him at the beginning of the season because he doesn't come out there just bang dominating.
Right.
He doesn't have time to do that, and that's where Beardy Bottas could perhaps put a little edge on, a little elbow out for Lewis if he does get a couple of races in and Lewis is on his back foot a little bit. He doesn't have the whole season to recover.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of think that Beardy Bottas has got to hit the ground
So
running.
first of all,
His
the
opportunity.
nickname needs to be Beardy McBotas Face, first of all.
Oh, obviously. I didn't even see that.
So Beardy McBotas Face
Right.
really does, you're right. That's all I have to contribute to this conversation.
Yeah.
I agree.
But
He needs to
remember-
hit the ground running, right.
Yes. And that's a long T-shirt. Can we get that made within?
Yes,
Oh,
Beardy
coming.
McBotas
Beardy
Have to
Face.
go round.
Bottas face.
Yeah, it might have to spin around the shirt a little bit. But when we saw Rosberg beat Lewis, right, he had to change his ideology, his approach, and it taxed him to the maximum
To
degree
the core,
where,
yeah.
where he couldn't keep doing it anymore. He's like, I cannot do this for
Right.
another
I'm
year.
good.
Right.
Having this opportunity is Bottas' best opportunity to beat
I think
Lewis
so
and win a
too.
world championship.
Yeah.
He can focus that long and be the fly in the ointment for Lewis for that stretch of time. And if he does get a couple of races on with some points, what does Mercedes do? They can't stop biasing it towards Lewis or anything like that because it's such a short season. So that strategy doesn't work. They really have to support both drivers every single weekend for maximum. There's no, we're halfway through the season, Bottas, you got to back Lewis up. That's just not going to happen this year.
Right. On Max and Alex, that's an interesting combination, and I don't see this as so much as a rival to me as it is a duo. And I think this is how Alex should approach this. I think Alex should see it that way, as that, we're kind of a duo. We're two assassins on this grid, and in that the two of them have to work together to topple Mercedes, and because Max is the clear leader at that team. Now, Alex may want to prove his stuff, and I understand that, but I don't see anyone on the horizon within the Red Bull empire that would be threatening his seat right now. And having said that, I think he'll have a home at Red Bull if he simply pushes Max to wins and he's there, and they work together as a duo to dislodge Mercedes and or Ferrari, and keep that Mercedes team separated, keep the pressure on them on an 8 to 12 race season, I think Red Bull could stand to do really well, as long as Alex isn't trying to race against Max or vice versa. You know, they've got to go at this in a team spirit. Alex doesn't have anything really to prove. I think he's there on merit. So why not the two of them work together to try to either take the constructors or a drivers for Max?
Because when I think team spirit, I think Red Bull. That is definitely the first thing that comes to mind.
Multi 21, Grace.
Right. I mean, no, I mean, I agree. And I think that Alex, I was thinking too, in all our downtime, there's been a lot of time for them to develop a narrative around who they are. And I can't imagine that Alex has to be a promoter's dream, right? Like the guy's personable, he's funny, he always seems to be,
Oh, he's got a great,
right?
story,
Helps old ladies across the road.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, right? And that, it's a new fan base to be bringing in. He's right. He has a great backstory. So I think that in that sense, as long as he does well, and I agree with you. I think as long as he is complimentary to Max and pushes Max, and that they're different enough that it could really work, as opposed to being as tooth and nail as each other is what often happens at Red Bull.
What would you do, Paul, if you were Christian? Which is tomorrow.
I'd say, hello, Ginger.
How's it going?
Ginger.
Well, you should try that after the podcast. See how that works for you.
You'd be out mowing the lawn with your Honda mower.
That's
right.
Would you pull Alex aside and say, look, dude, this is an odd season. It's a truncated season. We need to take the fight, and we don't have a lot of races to do it. So we need to take the fight right out of the box to Mercedes. So I need you, this isn't a season to try to prove that you can be number one at Red Bull. That's not what we're doing here. Max is our weapon. We're going to go with him. I need you to be an absolute symbiotic teammate with him. I need the two of you to be working together as teammates to pick off Mercedes and Ferrari's points.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd attack it with saying Max is the weapon and you're the backup.
Yeah.
But I would approach it as in, this is the only way we can beat those two other teams, is to work as a team every single race, every single lap, come up with strategies that get both our cars more points than if we just work diversely apart from each other and just support everyone individually, because you don't want to tell them you just got to support Max. That's a bit demoralizing.
Right.
You want to at least give yourself the chance that, hey, if you're in a position to win the race, then Max needs to support you for that race, and vice versa. This is the only way Red Bull can win a championship right now. And then as you said, this is an opportunity. This is something different. This is our chance to beat the Mercedes dominance. But we have to do it as a team and not fighting against each other ever through the whole season. So, you got your practices, you've got qualifyings, and your race start to put where you are going to be. But after that, whoever's behind is the supporting character to be in that race, but not over the whole season. And just build up. We're looking to get both cars further up the grid, the most points everyone race, rather than worry about who's individually doing well.
Your best shot.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How do you guys
you can be Christian Horner. Very good.
Hey,
better than what Christian would have said.
Hello, Ginger. Yes.
How do you guys think Kimi's going to do with this compressed season and schedule? Or do you think he'll find the whole COVID-19 process a royal pain in the butt and lose interest at the start, mid-season, or could this be his last
I think this is his season. I think there's so few races. This is his season. This is his dream season.
I think anything compressed that gives him more off time, the better.
Yeah, right. Like usually it's spread over, 6 months. He's like, I got to do this for 2 months. I can do this. Bring it.
Right.
I got your hand sanitizer. I'm ready.
Yeah, now we're with him wearing the mask and doing all that kind of business. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's gonna have Ron Dennis chasing after him around the paddock most of the time, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
He'll be the guy that shows up with a straw and a hole in the mask, or he's sipping his vodka out of a bottle. Yeah.
Right. And then finally, I was thinking, I wonder how the fans are all going to react to this. I mean, we know the fans will be missing from the races, but will that have an impact on the series at the actual circuits? Will the compressed series and the back-to-back-to-back races have any impact on the total viewership and ratings?
Where are we going? Most of us can't really go anywhere, or really going anywhere. So
yeah, but
you can go to the beach at Bournemouth, or you can go play in
Not
San
in
Pedro
Florida
Island
anymore.
here in Texas. There's all kinds of places to go play.
I'm pretty sure you can go to Kent. You can always go to Kent.
But I mean
Always.
in the sense of like, yes, you can go to individual places, but usually summer you're like, I'm going to this place, and like people just don't have those kind of schedules right now where they're like, every weekend I'm doing something because it's the summer, and the kids are in this summer camp, and we're doing this thing, and then we're going to Jamaica or whatever. So
that's why I've actually seen segments of every single NASCAR race this year.
Right, so people are home, and so
I've seen more NASCAR this year than I've seen in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that for most people, this is always the experience they've had. I mean, I've watched. Oh, sorry. I've clearly watched. I know. I'm sorry. Talking with my hands. You're all deaf now, but I'm sorry. Most of us only ever watch races on TV, right? So for most fans, nothing's changed.
That's true. That's true.
So, right? Like, because in a given season, maybe I go to a race, maybe, right?
Right.
So from a TV viewership, it's the same, unlike maybe a sport like basketball or soccer.
It's just more of it.
More of it.
And it's compressed.
More frequency,
Yeah. So it's back to back, sort of races and those kind of things. I'm kind
of like Kimi Räikkönen. It's fine. If I don't go anywhere for the next 10 Sundays because I've either got Formula One or MotoGP or both to watch, that's fine. Press my schedule right in there. It's fine.
Well, now we're down to the big one, aren't we? We left it to the last.
Okay.
Paul?
Are we like rock, paper, scissors? Or?
Yeah. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. We all had scissors. So,
they're the worst. We're the worst.
So
we're gonna
start with Paul.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're gonna give our predictions. Who is going to win the Constructors' Championship and who is going to win the Drivers' Championship? Paul, go.
Mercedes, Hamilton.
Okay.
Boring.
That is boring.
Oh, really, Paul? That's what we're left with. Okay.
But it's always going to be an asterisk season more than even Jensen Buttons.
It is.
That's true.
Sorry.
That is true.
That's a hard thing. Whoever wins this championship, it's going to be an asterisk season no matter what.
That's why another thing I'm factoring in. Lewis is an awesome driver. He won 7 titles.
6.5 isn't going to do it.
Right.
6.5 is going to bug him. That's going to bug him because he doesn't want to be measured against Schumacher by throwing him a bone on a half or a partial season in an asterisk.
No, because
That's
whoever
gonna drive him nuts. He's not wired that way.
No, whoever's doing this 40 years from now will be like that. Be like, whoa, it was a half a season, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't really count,
So if he was willing to just sort of give it a miss this year, this might be the year for him to say, I didn't get it done, and really focus on next year.
Yeah. But if he gets 7.5 championships, he's outdone Schumacher.
That's true.
He's more than equaled it, right?
Right. And there's all kinds of Hamilton fans saying, it's not a half, it's a full season if it's more than 8 races. And in 1963, they had 8 races, and I get it.
Yeah. But if he does get that little extra, it might lead him to leave Formula One earlier. You don't realize?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's had enough.
True. Grace, constructors and drivers.
All right. Well, I mean, I agree. I think it's going to be Mercedes and Lewis, but that's boring. And I'm going to try to go out on a crazier limb.
Latifi?
Not that crazy, man. Like, is everybody falling off the island for 8 of the 8 races? I mean, how does that happen? Like, Russell's just the enforcer and just runs into everybody. Like,
Just like the sim racers do.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
Yes, which they
It's like
finally.
Santucci.
Yeah.
We need to get him on the grid.
Gosh, people are. Yeah. Anyway, having now watched a lot of Formula 2019 in my household, there's some crazy ass people out there playing that game.
I know.
So yeah. Anyway,
I did get a new game though this week.
yeah.
Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Oh yes,
Man,
it's hard.
GT3, man, stuff
What's
I
that on
can't-
PlayStation?
on Xbox. It was a
Yeah,
PC
Xbox.
game that then they
Mhm.
brought into an Xbox. So I don't have a computer
Oh,
good enough
Yeah.
to play iRacing yet.
right.
But yeah, I was doing that
Mhm.
today. It's pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah, we have it for our PlayStation, our PlayStation. So.
Oh, they make it for PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Yeah.
new?
No,
Yeah.
I think the
Older.
game itself has been around, but I don't, maybe there's,
Yeah.
Well, the competition one just came out this week.
okay. See,
That's
there
the
you go.
one that's supposedly the same as the sim computer game.
Gotcha.
It was an
Okay.
Assetto Corsa before, but it's a
Mhm.
different one. Anyway,
I just play Gran Turismo, so I'm not,
welcome to Sim Chat,
I can't.
Todd's favorite. part
Wait,
of the show.
I'll go get Flip. He will be more than happy to tell you that he is 8%. I hope it's 8% because otherwise I'm never gonna hear the end of it. 8% in last week's Formula 2019 challenge. I
There
am
you
not.
go, Flip.
Way
I
to
know,
go.
right? Oh
Mhm.
my gosh! Every time there's like a down moment, he's like, "Wait, I gotta check my score." Like, okay, we're a little obsessed here. That's what I'm saying. And 2020 comes out this weekend, next weekend. I think it comes out next weekend. So then there's a whole new level of
Yeah.
obsession.
It's
going
cheaper
on.
though. It's only half the price. It's only half a championship. So.
Right.
I just
It's like $19.99, I think. Yeah.
no. I think that'd be great. You get Austria twice and Silverstone twice, and that's all you get.
All the
Right.
characters are wearing face masks.
Yeah. Right. Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I just want to know if they're going to have Mexico, if they figured out the stage, because really that is what I wanted in 2020 is that when you win at Mexico, you get to rise up out of the stage.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the question? Constructors. I am
Drivers,
going to
yeah.
go. I'm good. I got it. I read the notes. This actually, I was leaning this direction early on, and I think the more we talked about it, the more I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go for the Constructors Championship. I'm going to go with Red Bull.
Ooh.
This is the year. I feel like if Cam Newton can go to Boston, anything is possible. This year's been so crazy. Why not?
Okay.
Red Bull. This is
Red
their
Bull
year.
for Constructors.
Without Vettel, this is their year.
Okay.
So, and I'll just go Max Verstappen for the drivers. Why
Okay.
not?
Why not?
I'm living my life here.
He's got Albon backing him up, pushing him down the road all
That's
the
right.
time.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Smiling, making
Right.
jokes. It'll
You
be
got
great.
Vettel and Leclerc just banging into
Banging
each other.
wheels.
And they'll
Yeah.
just like drive right around it, right?
Right.
Like this.
And you got Beardy Bottas putting the heat on Lewis.
Beardy
and
Giving
giving
him
him
the
the-
Bottas face.
evil eye and Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my
Good work
constructors and drivers, I had Mercedes and Lewis. But if I'm honest, I would love to see Max take a run at it.
Yeah, right.
Get it.
That
I
would be
think
great.
it would be awesome if Max could pull that off. You know, and Paul, the only thing I go back to your point is that traditionally, I'm not saying Lewis is not capable of, but traditionally he starts off, gets a feel for the car, gets a feel for the season, gets a rhythm or a cadence, and then he starts turning it on. And it starts getting just ridiculously dominant. And certainly after the summer break, he is just unrelenting, right?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing Max and Red Bull have in their advantage is the Red Bull Ring, Hungaro Ring are the first three
Yes.
races. I
Right.
mean, that's nearly halfway through the season as we see it
That's
right now.
And
That
Max,
puts people in the back foot and makes people start doing something different if they're trying to catch up.
that's right. And Max doesn't take a quarter of a season to sort of find this cadence or get into this rhythm. He's going to hit the track going. I mean, great guns. So I would love to see Max make a run for it. I think it would be awesome. So
Yeah.
All right.
Also, before you move on,
yes,
guess I should have said this in the driver's bit, but you should also follow Alex Albon's cats. They have all his pets have their own Instagram, which
Cool.
I recently discovered. So thanks.
Okay.
You do have a lot of time.
you do.
Their cats are adorable. What do you know? I actually found it out through others, but
Okay.
I'm not going to follow cats.
you should. They have a dog too, but the
Okay,
cats
well, I might
are-
follow the dog.
just the dog. unlike.
And now, if they've got a quokka, then for sure I'm following it. I think you should go. Maybe Ricardo has one.
Maybe.
He might. I'm only following Botus.
Just
Botus. That's the only one.
Singularly focused.
That's just it.
And when you look at the results, everything's blurred out except for where
Yes.
Botus finished.
I feel like we also, I know it's already, past time where you're trying to get us to wrap up, but I feel like next week we also need, it's enough, Grace. Come on, whatever. I'm in charge now. I think also I'll need to be prepared to discuss the new graphics because I feel like I have a whole show worth of rants based on.
Oh, don't get me started. I know.
Man.
Well, you'll be happy to know that the first award is about that, Grace, and the first award of this podcast is always Post of the Week. See, it says right here, worthless opinion. They posted on the new TV graphics.
I just would like to say for the record, mine is blank, right?
Well,
I
mine
didn't
is
know
too.
this was
Yeah,
coming.
okay, fine.
He always does this to us, Grace.
He does, and that's
always a
fine.
surprise.
Like we don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's
But
always.
I didn't know. I just feel like these graphics, I have so much rolled up inside of me.
I like to get your, it's your hot take on this. So anyway, worthless opinion gets the award. Wrote a very good post about the TV graphics. It was a good discussion about what those graphics should actually show us. And to your point, Grace, what I would argue is not those silly battle cards and past predictions, right?
Right.
So, anyway, it was a good discussion.
All right.
And I
I'll go
appreciate it.
check that out. I think
Yep.
that, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. We watched I think Formula One actually put out a video about it, or Amazon did. And anyway, as we're going through it, and I keep pausing it, and I'm like, every rant ends with like MotoGP does. Like, it's not like Formula One is the only series that has to deal with graphics. You have all these other series that have perfected some way of providing us with this information.
Right.
Put it
Right.
together, Formula One.
It's right.
All right.
Even Paul's life is replete with graphics that come up on the chyron at the bottom of Paul's life. He goes into
It's
the
right
kitchen.
there.
He's
Ham sandwich.
chance.
Actually, I'm more like that. What's the MTV pop-up?
Yes,
Pop-up
you're like the
videos.
pop-up.
Yeah.
pop-up
I
videos.
Interesting
love pop-up
facts.
videos.
Open the fridge. Interesting fact about ham.
Yeah.
It's
right.
Yeah.
Paul
Right.
Kersley drinks 7 gallons of milk in a day. Yeah.
Paul's wife comes home, and a little pop-up. Paul's wife was originally from St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
Her name,
That sort of
despite
thing.
this podcast, is not Ginger. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Might be tonight. Great.
Oh,
As long as Paul's
This is
wearing
not
that
that
Amish
podcast.
underwear, he'll be good to go.
That's right.
I'm out.
I got the cloth over me.
Yes.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, the next award is Grace's favorite because it is the Lewis Hamilton Fashion Award.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
Get in there, Lewis.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
Get in there, Lewis.
All right. Are
We need
you
some
guys?
more intricate dance moves?
I know. Paul
gotta
just
work on
sits
that.
there, stony
Hate this.
silence, giving us dead eye.
It's 30 seconds of my life I don't get back.
So true. All right. If you're watching this podcast on our YouTube channel, you are going to see this week's Fashion Award right now. Can you see it?
I
Yeah.
can see it.
Isn't
Can we
that
rank it
great?
in a icy tub?
He nearly looks like he's got a halo over him, which I always thought he had anyway.
Or it's like they're somebody's making ice cream. I don't know.
No, it's
That tastes like Lil Riken in there.
well, he is the ice.
Was that mint chocolate chip? I'm not sure.
No,
What flavor would Kimmy taste like? Mint chocolate chips? What you went for? I don't know.
vodka.
Yes, right. Maybe rum raisin, right? Like, yeah.
No, I
Whatever
thought
damn flavor he wants to be. I'll tell
That's
you
right.
that.
it's a
Jerks.
picture of Kimi in a stand-up like cryogenic thing that he's doing.
Yeah.
The graphic on the display behind him says negative 119C, which means he is the Iceman. The other thing about this is it looks like to me that he may owe Jabba money. I don't
Yes.
know, but it looks like they're freezing him in carbonite.
Well, this picture is very small, and to me, I'm like, the background looks like some fridges with some like in a
Heads.
convenience store or something. And he looks like he's in one of those buckets, selling the latest the soda.
With the Red Bull and the
right.
big
In the
bucket
front door,
up
you come in
front.
the
Right.
front door. We're trying to pitch this week. He kind of looks like the
Free samples.
spokesperson for the latest soda in the 7-Eleven.
Great.
Yeah.
With the kind of like round tub with all the ice that's half
Exactly,
melted in there and the
exactly.
floating cans, yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway, that's your winner.
I'll have one of those cans and 3 lottery tickets.
Right. It's great. All right. And then finally, we've renamed it. It is the Gunther Steiner Bravado Awards. Oh, yeah. I need to get a little soundbite of Gunther, and it would be good to play like him drop an F-bomb right here, but I can't do
It
that.
has to be F smash my door. That has to be the greatest thing he's ever said.
Right. Right.
You just have to bleep it. I'm sure somebody has already done that.
I think it needs to be a bit more edgy. That's a little bit too smooth.
That's too smooth.
Yeah.
Yelling.
We need some Nitzareb or something in there. Just to,
Or
really
you could-
get myself on edge.
I mean, you really have enough material that you could do a new quote every week if you wanted.
Yeah, right. So I need to do that. So the Bravado Award goes to the UK police on their commentary warning people who might try to hang out at the Silverstone circuit around the outside perimeter of the fencing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already warning people not to do this. It says, quote, "We completely understand fans may be tempted to be close to the circuit for the race, but unfortunately that will not be possible this year, and access to the local area will be extremely restricted. I am urging fans to enjoy these." I'm using fans as lab rats. No.
That's Ron Dennis's quote.
That's what it is.
Nice, Ron.
I'm urging fans to enjoy these events from home, as it will not be permissible or, in fact, possible to spectate from the perimeter fences. Anybody attempting to do so will be turned away by Silverstone security, who will be tightly controlling these areas, or my officers. Though the races are being held behind closed doors, the security measures we are putting in place will be as stringent as ever. We are working alongside the circuit to deliver 2 safe events for both the participants, their teams, and local communities. End quotes. There you go.
All I can tell you is, poor Charles's there as an 11-year-old boy. You ain't keeping me out.
Yep, that's right.
Getting in there somehow.
It's a very difficult message when you have all these other big events going on where you're seeing, hey, there's this huge gathering, there's 60,000 people or whatever it is. It's kind of tough when you're just wanting to crawl up to the fence and kind of look over through the fence.
Yeah, I haven't seen what's happening on the outside of the football games because the Premiership just kicked in.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if a lot of people are showing up just to be outside,
Yeah.
or they're doing the same thing as Silverstone apparently is going to try and do, and just keep people so far away they can't even get access from outside the track.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, even if you did have people going up to the fences, it's not like, I can't imagine 180,000 people going up and standing around the perimeter of the fence. I just,
Right.
I don't think you're going to get that kind of turnout.
Yeah, they're too busy holidaying down in Bournemouth.
Right. And Kent.
About a foot away from the other family.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I think you just want to preemptively put that out there, though.
Yeah.
Don't get any ideas, people.
Yes.
You'll be looked at very annoyingly on site if we see you.
Yes, we'll give you a very harsh look,
Mm.
and you won't like that look.
Especially if your nose is sticking out.
Right. Right. All right.
It's a
Might be a
big
little-
deal, Grace. It's a big deal.
It is a big
It
deal.
is a
for
big
me.
deal, but I mean, come on, people.
That's the least of our worries in Texas, Grace.
Yeah, I know, right?
You walk by in a Walmart and they will lick you on the cheek. Just,
Oh, they lick the mask and then put it on for you and rub their hands on the front, right?
Right. Right. And then
Yes.
spray you down.
Right. Here, wait, let me clean that for you. Here you go, sir. You're good to go.
Right. All right.
Pushed up.
That does it. Make sure you stop by the website, theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion. Just do it to decorum and civility. As always, if you like the podcast, you can give us a little love over at iTunes. Leave a review and give us a good review over there. We'd appreciate that. Also, very exciting. We're teaming up this year. We are doing our Fantasy GP series. It starts in a few days.
The Ferrarios are ready.
That's right.
The Houston Astro Ferrarios, we're coming. I did not forget.
Yep. And our friend Skip Williams over at Kingsbridge BCP has created a dedicated website now for all TPF players that after each race, he'll have all the results up there in a nice graphical interface, and you'll be able to see that. So I am going to post an official post here either this evening or tomorrow announcing that Fantasy GP and the league is set up. It's ready to go, and it'll have links over to Skip's website where they're doing that for us, and so it's very exciting. So we're going to do that.
All right.
Let's see. Also, a huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. We could not and would not do this podcast without you. Thank you so much. If you've ever considered supporting us and you like the podcast, we'd be incredibly grateful for your support at our Patreon page. If you go to our website on the right-hand side, it says support us through Patreon, and you can click on that and go to Patreon, look up the Parc Fermé. It should take you to our page, and you can support us there. So we'd appreciate that. And I promise I am about 3/4 of the way through a new TPF Stories podcast, and I'm having a lot of fun researching this one. And so I get on these rabbit trails. I get, oh, really? So that's who that was? That's what they did? Well, what else did they do? And then I get off track. So anyway, squirrel. So anyway, bear with me on that. I'm getting close. So, all right. Well, Grace, Paul, thanks for coming on and sharing your predictions. How predictable. And telling us your recertified official 2020 season preview.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Beardy McBoda's face would make a great fantasy team name, too.
Sure would. All right. Well, until we do this all over next week when we're actually reviewing a race, that'll be amazing. I know, it's amazing.
So excited.
It is. Exciting. So until we come back next week, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Canberry, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.